Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends at RCCA Media. They are here digitally recording this conversation in high definition for rebroadcast later on Charter Channel 985 and Solaris Channel 3, which is in high def, or you can see it in high def 24 hours a day, 24/7 on demand at rccamedia.org. And why are they here, you're asking? It's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink as we find out what's happening in the city of Wisconsin Rapids. With that, good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Carl, and good morning to our listeners.
Okay, so kind of a nasty night last night. I mean, a lot of lightning. I mean, it was like a
close lightning.
Was turned on the Weather Channel on the TV, and all of a sudden they're talking about Chicago, and then they moved up in Wisconsin Rapids, and they show our radar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're talking about a very strong thunderstorm, folks, in your neck. Expect frequent lightning. I'm going, no kidding. I just drove through it.
Mm-hmm. And lots of rain.
And lots of rain.
Yeah, and just got an email this morning notifying us from Consolidated Water Power, which is the Verso subsidiary that oversees the dam operation, and they're putting us on notice that received over 2.8 inches at their station last night, and flow is currently at 18,000 CFS. It's actually expected to be 40 to 45,000 range by Friday afternoon, so it's going to double the current flow.
So we're going to have some flooding.
Yeah, we're going to have a high river for a few days, and that's expected into early Saturday.
Okay, well, I'm glad you got that. And so
share that. Some people are monitor that very close, and to have a little bit of heads up is kind of nice.
Yes, it is. I thank you for doing that. So if you just heard that, the river is rising. We got close to 3 inches of rain. It's going to continue to rise for the next several days. So if you live near the river, be aware of that and anticipate. I would anticipate closure of, say, the bike trail and the walking trail down by the river, probably later today.
Yeah, if not already.
Okay. So, but that show you just demonstrated there. We since our great flood, as it were, we've learned some things from that incident, and now we have this system of communications where you as mayor just got an alert from an important utility saying, look out, it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Being proactive is important for any situation, especially as they predicted only 2 inches of rain, and we got nearly 3, and so there's a big difference that can be had in our preparedness for any circumstances, small or large, right? And
now we got wind, so we're probably going to have a lot of tree damage.
Yeah, I know there were a lot of trees. I got some messages this morning from residents indicating, is this a tree that the city would take down, etc. And so we've connected those with the street department, with the city garage to take a look at. But I know there were a lot of branches came down and things with the wind, and there will be more, as you indicated, with the wind advisory this afternoon.
Okay, so what should folks do if they have tree damage from this storm?
Well, if it's on private property, it's their responsibility. If it's in city right-of-way, there may be something that the city may participate in, so to contact the city garage directly, and then the city garage may take a look at it. I don't believe we're going to do any early storm cleanup, but if there is a widespread need for it, the street department may be making some rounds to collect some of the tree limbs that have come down. Normally it doesn't begin until April, and so I think if they have questions or people have large limbs that came down or something, and typically they'd place them at the street, they have to contact the street department and see if they're planning to do any routes. But at this point, people should retain them, at the side of their home or whatever, or take care of themselves, or wait till the scheduled brush pickup, which would be in the spring.
Okay. Well, last night, let's talk about recycling. Well, and then I want to talk a little bit about Reggie. I want to get your reaction to a presentation which was also done recently to the village board in Buren. And so I want to get your take on it. But let's talk about recycling, because that was the highlight last time. And after our talk, Pam and I contacted our sister-in-law, who lives in Little Chute. And they have the type of system that we're looking at transitioning to, and we asked her, is there any problems or any big... No, It's very easy. In fact, it's very convenient. And then we go, okay, that's nice to know. Because she has some physical limitations and the like. And so that was why we were interested in her take on this.
Sure.
Yeah. So what happened?
So 2 weeks ago, the Public Works Committee took up the issue of changing from dual stream collection to single stream collection, where we would commingle our paper and fiber with the rest of our recyclables. And because the Public Works Committee took that up and actually forwarded on their support for the change at their meeting. That went to the City Council last night. There was no discussion at the City Council level because from here, that will now go to the Finance Committee. Because the Finance Committee, through the budget process last year, the City Council hadn't earmarked monies for the rest of the collection aspects, which would be the totes or the canisters that would be necessary under an automated collection system. We do have a replacement fund for our equipment, like we do any other equipment in the street department. So there's monies allocated for the replacement of the recycling truck, and that's not a concern. It's more or less how are we going to finance the bins? And so there's a number of ways we're going to consider. There hasn't been a formal proposal issued on that, but that'll happen at the committee level, possibly in early April. There's a slight possibility that the committee dates will be shifted due to the election on April 5th. We moved the council meeting actually last night to the 14th of April, which would be the second Thursday, because of a couple of council members that cannot attend the meeting on the third Tuesday. But as far as the next steps, certainly watch out for if people want to voice their opinion on this subject. Watch for some meeting notices at the Finance Committee level as well as the council. But we know at this point the council meeting will be the 14th of April at 6 p.m. at City Hall, which is the second Thursday. And then if folks have concerns or want to even voice their opinion in support, certainly able to do that at the committee level and at the council level.
Okay, so basically it's past its first hurdle. Now we have to go to finance because they are going to be financing this.
Correct.
And then it comes back to the council for final action. That will be next month.
Exactly. And we do have 96-gallon totes as well as 48-gallon totes at the entrance of City Hall at the lobby, inside the lobby, I should say, so folks can come in, maneuver the carts. They're full of recyclables. I recorded a short video yesterday afternoon indicating that they're available for folks to come and take a look at. So we encourage residents who have concerns about the size, or as you said, if there's limitations and you want to maneuver them. And frankly, they're a lot easier than carrying bins out to the street as we do today. And so I think residents will be pleased as time goes on as we introduce this system.
Well, and I would encourage residents, too, if you know someone who lives in another community. I think we're one of the few communities that still does it this way.
Very, very true.
I mean, most everyone else has gone to, this is Little Chute, Wisconsin. Come on, Wisconsin.
The Valley, Central Wisconsin, Southern Wisconsin, all the municipalities have, in some places, in fact, our Public Works Director and Street Superintendent attended a visit over in Oshkosh on Monday to check out their collection system. They've got a truck style that we're looking at going to. In fact, they had talked about bins, and we've talked to a ton of municipalities, La Crosse, Wausau, now Oshkosh, and others about their experience. And it all comes down to education, right? The more we can educate folks and know what to expect and prepare them for it, the more success we're going to have. And that's been a common theme across all the municipalities we've talked to. The other major common theme is the fact that we're going to be able to increase our recyclable collection from 20% on the low end that were projected all the way up to 60% on the high end. So it's up to 60% less material in our garbage stream, which if folks have followed our conversations on this, it's 60% less than we're going to have to pay in tipping fees that will be now captured in a recycling stream. And then when the recycling market's great, we're going to be able to get some revenues from it. When it's down, obviously we're going to have to pay to tip it in the recycling stream. But the benefit is we're going to be saving space in our landfill.
Okay, yeah, and that saves money. The phone lines are open, I should mention, at 715-424-2600, pound 1320 on a U.S. cellular phone. If you want to talk to Mayor Vruwink about any city issue, whether it be recycling or anything else this morning. I want to move on to Reggie. The President, Steve Anderson, has been giving updates on the Reggie program to local units of government. I just talked to John Evenson. Well, we got a call first, so why don't we get to our phone caller? Good morning. You're on the Morning Magazine with Mayor Vruwink.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, with all the issues in Flint, Michigan, with their lead pipes, what kind of pipes and with the city water system does the Wisconsin Rapids have, or?
Sure, that's a great question. In fact, did my interview yesterday afternoon at RCCA, and the question came up about lead pipes. And it's because of the crisis in Flint, every mayor has received correspondence on the subject from a variety of agencies, state and federal, to educate folks about this, educate the community. And it's forced me to ask some questions of our water utility. Well, one thing I've learned through this process since Flint, Michigan had their crisis is that every community, because of depending on the time of development, but in the 50s, every community has lead pipes, and what's critically important is that the water supply has certain compounds and a composition to make sure that the drinking water stays safe while it's in the lead pipes. Some communities have pegged. We haven't done a cost analysis to replace our lead pipes, but it's an exorbitant amount of money to replace all these things. So. The good news is our utility, being a publicly owned utility, still has business as usual in terms of their composition. We're not proposing any major changes like they did in Flint to create the problem now that they've got to deal with there. So the good news is, while we do have lead pipes, our water supply is safe. And now there has been some conversation, though, I see in the local media recently about Wisconsin's drinking water supply. And it's if you don't have water, right, it's a basic right we take for granted, I think, on a daily basis. If we don't have a good, healthy water supply, we're in crisis mode. And not to mention shortages of water and other things that are being experienced in other parts of the country. But fortunately, we've got a great system here, and our utility has a great track record of maintaining that and managing it and making sure that it's a safe, quality drinking water.
Okay. Any other questions?
So what you're saying is that Wisconsin Rapids, they do have the lead pipes. So are they...
Everybody does.
Everyone has them.
Yep, everybody does.
Okay, so as they going through and doing maintenance or whatever, or digging these up, are they replacing them with? That's
correct. So any street reconstruction project where we would replace water lines, we would be replacing those pipes at that time.
And they're replacing them with?
There's no plan to proactively replace them at this point because they're not of concern.
But when we do replace, if you're on a construction crew and you replace a segment of this water pipe, is it replaced with something that's not lead?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And what is it replaced with?
That's a great question. I guess it depends on the laterals, or if you're talking the laterals to the home, or if you're talking the mains that are in the street. The laterals, I'd assume, are some plastic PVC compound, but I guess it depends. When we talk about freezing laterals and things, we're lowering a lot of laterals in parts of the community as time goes on. There's some parts of town we have to run water in the wintertime because of the freezing situation, but they're not replaced with lead pipes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Okay. Moving, I'm glad she called. I mean, that is something. Yeah, it's a great question. Reggie, going back to Steve Anderson, he's been going. I talked to Buren President John Evenson. They made a presentation to the village of Buren, wanting them to get on board with the whole. And Reggie, for those of you, Regional Economic Growth Initiative.
That's correct.
And before I get to this next, I want the caller to hang on. When I punch you up, stay on the line. But because of my short memory, I want to make sure what was the message Mr. Anderson presented to the city?
Well, it was the first time that the newly seated president of Reggie had been introduced to the council and the community on a formal basis at the council meeting. He has met some of the council members maybe in passing in different community events, but it was the first time he was able to introduce himself, talk about his background, and what his charge is here in the community. And so for folks, as you mentioned, the acronym of Reggie, it's really the economic umbrella that many of the municipalities, if not all the municipalities, have decided to participate and join together in. And so it's a regional voice as we try to grow our local economy. Each of us speaking alone in our own municipalities can do so, and will continue to do so. But the Reggie group is meant to be on a regional basis to speak about the Wisconsin Rapids area and an opportunity for business growth and development. Steve does come to us with a strong background in economic development in many regions around the country that he's worked in. Steve will be here full time and has been for a number of months now. We have a local board of directors which oversees their work, and in fact, we've got a representative from the city. Adam, our planning and economic development director, is on the board.
Who's on the board? Who makes up the board? Are there business people?
Yeah, there's business people. There's a whole group of people. In fact, they're still, as I understand, taking on board members. So if individuals have a real strong desire, as we all do, to see our economy grow and thrive, but have some skill or something to offer, I think the board of directors would consider them for an appointment. So Steve introduced himself. It was fairly short presentation. Referenced some of the recent work that's been done within Reggie, and that's the asset study in which they looked at all of the economic development pieces in the region and identified strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, right? What are the weaknesses that could be converted into opportunities for us? And, for the city of Rapids, a couple of things were identified, one of which was our West Side Industrial Park, for example, is very mature and very built out.
Right.
There isn't a lot of space available, and the space that is available is typically older, and so it's not as desirable for business expansion. So that was one identified piece. It also identified that the region lacks a strong central place, and that strong central place, we've referred to it as our downtown waterfront area, right? And in their work, in their review, that every community that has a strong economy has a strong central place, and it's not just for the city residents, it's for the region, right? The region has a strong central place. So they really pointed to the need for the community to continue to prioritize investment in its central place. It's something obviously we've talked a lot about on your show. It's something that's very near and dear to me and in our work. And the city is all in growing its central place, recognizing the basic sense. It's not about anything individually we'd like to see down there. It's a matter of our economy depends on a strong central place, and it's something we had at one point in our history, and we hope to continue to build as we go forward. Okay,
and how can folks, if they want to learn more about Reggie or contact
Steve's office is in the lower level of the Chamber of Commerce, so Steve can be reached there right at the Chamber, right off of Lincoln Street in the Expressway. And so his office is there. He's working out of that location at this point. And Steve's willing and able to, I introduce him to business owners and business people all the time. So if someone has a growth opportunity or has a challenge even, and Steve's expertise and resources, he's been working a lot at the state level. Obviously, there's a lot of resources that we've tapped, some of the resources we've tapped into, but there's a lot more on the economic development spectrum that Steve has been working with state leaders on. And so obviously it behooves us to take advantage of those resources here as we continue to grow our economy.
And with that, I thank the caller for waiting. Your question or comment for Mayor Vruwink?
What I want to know is back onto the recycling. I live alone and I get around with a walker. Mm-hmm. Now, this is going to be a 95-gallon container that I've got to try and push around to get out there every week.
You'll have the option for a smaller cart. Yeah, you and I are in the same boat. I have a one-stall garage, and I live alone. Now, my mobility I have, I suppose, but there's an option for a 48-gallon cart, which is much, much smaller and easier. Both are easy, but this one is a little bit easier to maneuver.
Yeah, and I know, like the paper and that stuff that they would recycle because my in-laws take it over to the recycling place, and but it's just that I end up with every week a small plastic bag that you can. That's about all I have now.
Right.
When I have to push this big thing out there, is this going to be a daily? I mean, a weekly thing that because I don't want to keep my garbage any longer than a week if I can help it.
Right. So we're going to maintain. So garbage isn't changing today. That'll be coming at a later date. But we're focused on just recycling at this point. And the reason for that is our recycling truck is beyond its service life, and so by doing recycling first, garbage will.
Oh, you mean it would be just the paper and the cans and that stuff?
That's what we're talking about, recyclables. Mm-hmm. And you would have the option of the smaller
Right. The 48-gallon, you can opt into the 48-gallon size total.
Oh, okay. I thought you just included the garbage and everything. That was all.
Nope. The garbage will follow later, and I'm with you on the garbage piece. There's a lot of residents like us that only generate a small bag of garbage a week, but garbage will follow. It'll be at least a year before garbage gains any traction for that system to change.
Okay.
Okay, that answered my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's why we're here. That's why I'm glad the gentleman called, so there's no misunderstanding.
Right.
Yeah, we're talking recyclables, and for those of you who don't need the knife, you can have, not like for Pam and I, what would work best for us?
It depends.
What's a good way for...
The one thing that Oshkosh and La Crosse and Wausau and all these communities have experienced is initially, I or many residents may say, I only want the small cart. But they have found that there's been such a opt-out and people having to pay for the full 96-gallon container after they've opted in for the smaller one. Now, some of that might be, they underestimated or really just didn't want the larger one because they didn't think they'd fill it. But the reality is when you have a larger bin, you recycle more because if your bin is full, you typically don't put it in.
I think Pam and I would go with the larger bin.
Recommending that most dual family homes, that they do go with a larger container, especially if now let's say if you're taking all of your paper and fiber over to paperboard on a regular basis yourself and not putting it in the system to be collected by the city, you may be able to get by with a smaller container. I get newspapers at home and magazines, and I take all of my fiber. Actually, I don't even set any of my cardboard and fiber at the curb. I just deliver to paperboard myself.
In fact, you just reminded me of a spring project. We're going to be cleaning up, doing some house cleaning, and that involves how long do we have to keep certain magazines?
Purging that paper. And the other opportunity is people to drop it at ODC. There's also a community drop.
That's where we usually go because where I live on the east side of the city, it's more convenient for me to just load up the car and drive over to ODC.
Right. So the idea would be residents would be able to do a one-time opt-in for a smaller container.
And this would be...
The default would be the 96-gallon cart, and then they would...
And how much would that pay? Is there going to be a charge for that? Or
I don't believe... Well, we haven't gotten there yet. That's what the Finance Committee ultimately will decide. But I believe at this time, the idea is that residents will have the option, and then if they change, there will be a fee to do so. Because then what's the city going to do with
it? Okay, so that's an economic incentive. You might as well go with the larger one if you can, unless you got some physical issues.
Physical limitations for space in your garage, we're hearing. That's one for me. It's a tight garage, right? And so you don't have a lot of space, especially if and when we go to automated collection for our garbage. That if you've got to store 2 containers in your garage, you may, if you're even a 1 or 2 family home, you may still be able to get by with a smaller container.
All I know is my recycling bin, and I still have the original one, it's on its last legs.
You're lucky to have one. I never got one.
It's on its last legs. I pray every time I send it out there, and then on a windy day, I'm really worried.
Yeah, we're in rough shape around town.
Yes. We got to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more, and you are invited to join in the conversation as folks have this morning at 715-424-2600, pound 1320 on a U.S. cellular phone. You're listening to a conversation and a Wisconsin Rapids update with Mayor Zach Vruwink here on the Morning Magazine. It's our monthly update with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. He's here for the entire program. And we're talking everything about what's going on in Wisconsin Rapids. And we got a call. So let's get back to the calls. I like this. This is good participation. I like it when people are asking the questions of you. Okay, you're on the air with the mayor.
Good morning, Mayor and Carl. I have 3 things that if you could address for us. Where the nuisance ordinance is, where the membrane garages are they still being asked to be removed? And what was my third thing? Well, I guess I've forgotten it, and I'm not able to write it down. So I'll listen off the air, guys, on these 2 issues, and I thank you.
Okay.
for your time.
You're
Thanks for the
welcome.
call.
Thank you for the call.
The nuisance ordinance actually just last night at the end of the council meeting was referred to the next Finance and Property Committee meeting. So I'd expect that whenever that meeting is scheduled, if it's the end of March here or if it's in early April, the nuisance ordinance will finally have a public hearing, let's say, for the council and members of the public to weigh in. Just for some background for folks, the nuisance ordinance has been talked about in our community now for well over a year. The nuisance ordinance is meant to really deal with the chronic nuisance complaints. So let's say multiple calls for service from the police department on a given parcel or an address that just seem to be chronic in nature. They're not going away. They're very similar in nature. And ultimately for a resident, they're a drain on our resources, right? They're draining resources from something else. So that's in effect, the chronic nuisance in a nutshell. It's geared toward both commercial properties, so different establishments, as well as residential properties. And so there are thresholds in effect that when a complaint volume gets to be a certain point, it meets a chronic sort of definition. The city of Wausau and actually the Fox Valley have very robust chronic nuisance ordinances, and I think they've been successful. Obviously, they're challenging to enforce sometimes just because of the nature. If they're chronic, they're problematic and can't necessarily be remedied overnight. But the good news is that was referred by Alderperson Kellogg last night to the Finance and Property Committee meeting, and I'd fully expect that would be on the council agenda in April, hopefully for adoption. The second question was around membrane structures, and There has been some enforcement by the city's building inspector.
What are we talking about?
So these are they're really temporary structures, temporary sheds. They're small, maybe 6-7 feet tall by 8 feet long. Maybe some can fit a car in them. Some small like a boat or camper and things. But essentially, they're tarped. Their covers are tarped, and so there's been some enforcement in that area. So the caller asked, "Is the city still asking for them to come down?" There was an appeal that went from one of those individuals' residents that had been put on notice that it doesn't meet certain building code. It needs to be removed. And it was an appeal at the Board of Zoning Appeals. And at that stage, there was I believe a kind of a stay, if you will, put on the current status of building of the membrane structures in the city. What's unclear, though, is what the next steps are. And I know the zoning administrator, the director of planning and zoning, is working through kind of what the next steps and recommendations are. The city council may be weighing in on this issue, but we're awaiting the sort of staff report and recommendation following the Board of Zoning Appeals decision on the one appeal that came before them. So that I don't really have much more of an update beyond that, but to watch the meeting notices and certainly contact the Planning and Zoning Office for specific information.
Okay, let's get back to the phones. We have people that want to talk to you. You're up next. You're on the air with Mayor Vruwink.
Good morning, gentlemen. I have a couple questions. And also a comment. There was a gentleman that asked about the recycling and said how, he had just so little to take out and stuff. And I guess I have to say that I hope that that's an opportunity for our neighbors and our community and stuff to, pitch in. I know we know that our neighbor next door, elderly, doesn't have very much recycling, and that's just another opportunity for us to be friendly and, to pick up her recycling and, add it onto the top of ours and stuff and
Good
take
point.
it out. So,
That's great. Very neighborly.
Also, I noticed in the newspaper there was a little bit of information about possibly a new dog park.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious for more information on that. And I would also like to say there's been some in the past about parks and dog walking and things like that and dog waste and wondering, there's definitely like signs on some of the little hanging garbage cans that say no dog waste.
Mm-hmm.
And if there can be, I know I've seen some different communities that have had, specific things for people with dogs to be a more dog-friendly community. So can you address some of those?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All very good points, and I'm glad that you raised them. There's a number of them I'll touch on. The first of which, definitely thank you for your willingness to help out your neighbor. And I agree that, if folks see somebody that may be in need, certainly lend a hand. The other piece related to the dog park, there was a proposal from the Heart of Wisconsin Leadership Program that came before the Airport Commission for a preliminary discussion about potentially using some airport property for a dog park.
Yeah, as a background, this year's leadership class, that's one of the things they've been looking at.
Right. So the group assembled around that idea, and so a number of reasons why that property was identified. First of which, you cannot build structures on it, so it'll never be developed in a way that will ever intrude the flight path, because it's actually at the end of one of the runways. The other idea is it's very sandy, and it's a large parcel. It's as large or larger than our existing Wisconsin Rapids dog park. And because it's sandy, big complaint that users, maybe you yourself, notice that our dog park is very wet a lot, even in wet times.
Well, this is the wet side of the river.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not ideal. We haven't gotten anything further really than just a preliminary introduction of the idea on the site. Now, there are some some hurdles with that site, and we have to talk to the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. So there's potentially a long road to hoe on that, but our airport manager is now looking into the potential of us using that as a potential site. And if you're interested in that group's information, contact my office, and I'd be happy to connect you with them. They're always looking for more support and more people to assist them in their endeavor. They're also looking at some alternative sites just in case that doesn't pan out or becomes too long-term. We haven't weighed in on whether or not we're going to close the existing dog park or any of that. That's too preliminary at this stage. But we're very excited that there's a group that wants to have a really world-class and a destination dog park as other communities have. And I think to your point, having and promoting a place where people can have good places with their animals is important, and it's a good quality of life attributor.
What about the thing she brought up too about current regulations? We've had this discussion before about the parks and the like.
Well, I would say we'll separate the parks from the trails, because the trails is something that personally I've advocated and said, if people are responsible, they're leashing their dogs and they're picking up their pet waste and disposing of it properly, they should be allowed to use the great asset we have in our trail system. Not everyone agrees. I will say that. I do hear from people that disagree with me on that. But as somebody that bikes and runs, and if people are responsible on the trail, as people I've run into on the trail, I mean, they sit their dog, or if you're coming, they're not taking up too much of the trail and that sort of thing. But being responsible, I think they should be able to use the trail just like the rest of us. So that issue went to Park and Rec, the Park and Rec Commission, and I don't believe it's been fully settled. We did discuss installing pet waste containers at various points along the trail.
I've seen that in other communities.
Yeah, it's a great, it encourages obviously good behavior. And as I was talking with someone yesterday about the need for trash pickup along the trails, it's all these nudges. It's just encouraging people that if your dog, you goes to the bathroom, you pick up the waste and you dispose of it properly. It's responsible citizens should do that. So it hasn't been fully settled. I don't believe the Park and Rec Commission is going to make any drastic changes with pets or dogs in parks per se, because of the playground equipment and some of the other reasons.
Of course.
But definitely the trail system, of course, all of our trail expansion plans along the riverfront on the East Bank, we want to make sure that we're promoting a wide variety of uses of that trail, and that includes people that are responsible pet owners.
Okay. Did that answer your questions?
I think so. I would like to see there be, like I said, the specific kind of waste receptacles for dog waste, and maybe even a project to have bags and stuff available. I know that there's projects and stuff out there for people to just kind of reuse bags and have that out there.
Okay.
But thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, some good questions today. I like that, gang. Keep it up. 715-424-2600, pound 1320 on a U.S. cellular phone. We'll get you on the Morning Magazine with Mayor Vruwink. Welcome back to the Morning Magazine. We've been visiting, getting our Wisconsin Rapids update from Mayor Zach Vruwink. Let's talk about a home along the river. It's been for sale for some time, and some of us have been inside. There have been some events held to show it off. I know the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce held a business after hours a year or two ago there. It's a beautiful thing. And La Chateau now is going to be a bed and breakfast.
It will be. And many people had said that would be a great bed and breakfast. It just required the right person with the right vision and the right ambition. And the City Council last night took up the Planning Commission reports, and we approved it on our Planning Commission level to allow a conditional use for Le Chateau or La Chateau, the Manor bed and breakfast, which is one of the Arpin houses, the Queen Anne, next to the old mortuary up on First Street. So that property, 840 First Street, will be open. Actually, they're already marketing and taking bookings, as I understand. Of course, they needed approval and things before they could ultimately host any guests. But the cool thing is we're going to have a beautiful bed and breakfast right in time with many events coming to the community this summer and this fall.
Who are the owners? Are they a local group?
The Colliers, they, and it was a dream of theirs to open a bed and breakfast. And,
cool.
And timing was right. I think the price was right. That we all know you could never construct a home of that nature.
No.
The selling price of that thing. Very, very, very large home, but beautiful place nonetheless.
Well, good. Well, we congratulate them, the new owners, and wish them all the best in their venture. And to all of you, and now that gives us an idea, too, local guys, if we want to surprise the wife for something, for an anniversary gift or something like that.
Yes.
Honey, I'm taking you to the chateau.
Yeah, right. There you go, Carl. I hope Pam isn't listening.
She's got jury duty.
You spoiled her otherwise.
Okay, the other one. And we've been talking about a need for a sports store of some kind in this city for, I don't know, forever.
Yes.
And now we have one. MC Sports, and based on the documentation I've read, they're putting like some $400,000 into the old Staples building. Yeah. Are they leasing it or are they buying it? What's the...
Well, it actually went through foreclosure or some proceedings where it actually ended up being sold. The property did. Makes sense after you lose a major tenant of Staples, that the property owner decided to, do whatever they did with it. There are new owners of the property. They're from New York, and so in our efforts to bring a sporting goods retailer to town, knowing that there was a long history of leakage where folks were spending outside the community in that area, MC Sports saw a major opportunity, and so we don't have any restrictions against them carrying any firearms and things, so they will be carrying firearms as well in their property. It's gonna be a large store.
Golf, baseball, everything.
Yeah, and as for many of us that have been to their stores, or even in Plover, for example, Plover's a little bit smaller. They don't, I believe, carry rifles and things, but this store will. And, so we'll finally be able to buy kayaks and other things in town that we hadn't been able to buy before. So pleased to welcome them to the community and obviously take a major vacancy off the market. The Staples building is a behemoth, right? 30-some thousand square feet. And the longer those things sit vacant, the harder they are to fill long term.
What's the timetable? Have they given a timetable?
They haven't formally given any timetable. In fact, they haven't even formally made an announcement, but the newspaper originally reported it, so of course we can talk about it. And the permits have been pulled. We expect it'll be about 3 months for them to complete their construction. It's well over $400,000. That was just some of the permits for the construction. So they're sinking a good sum of money in that building to bring it to life.
Well, yeah. I would imagine they have to make it fit their standards and their needs for all the different departments that they have in it.
Correct.
And also since the building's been vacant for a while, there might be some maintenance issues as well to the building.
Exactly. But one less vacancy on 8th Street, which is a major thing, especially as we bring lots of visitors to the community throughout the year.
Speaking of visitors.
Yes.
When visitors come to a community, they may need transportation.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's first talk about a new cab service.
Sure. Well, there are 2 cab-related items on our agenda last night, one of which was a gentleman, local guy, has decided to start his own taxi cab service.
This isn't a Uber?
It's not. Nope. Rapids Quick Cab is the name of the service, and he's just launching with 1 car at this point. It will not be a part of our shared ride taxi service, which we contract with River City Cab for, but he sees a market opportunity, I believe, and has decided to start his own business and is going to be launching that as of, effective last night he could, following our approval.
Okay. That begs the question, and you and I were talking about it during the break a little bit. Is this something that the council is going to need to address or take upgrading or updating city regulations related to cab services in the era of Uber and other services? And like, for instance, we're going to have international visitors coming here for the International Water Ski Show. Once Sand Valley gets online, you're going to have business people who come from all over the country, and they're used to a certain amenities and like. So, is this something that we need to start having a discussion about in our city?
Well, I think many communities have had to have it out of necessity because of the sharing economy, which is Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and all these others. And some of our regulations do allow for it, right? I think the taxi, looking through our ordinances on this, I believe the process is clear that they have to file for a license now. The state has preempted a lot of municipal authority in this area in recognizing or licensing Uber and other drivers on the state level. So to some degree, there may be some local jurisdiction yet, but in many cases, the state has preempted just recently any sort of local control on this issue. So I don't know exactly, I didn't follow the state law too closely, but I know that there were some state bills passed that governed, in fact, it made places like Madison upset because there's a large taxi cab service there, or many services, I should say, that were very upset with the state's deciding to say, well, we know best in Madison or the city of Madison or city of Rapids. You don't know any better than we do.
I'm going to vent here. This is why I say I don't care if it's an R or a D by name. They all, when it comes to the state government, they seem to think we know better than the local communities.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It don't matter. I keep it. The minority party will go, well, we're going to be for local government and local control or decentralized government, and then they get in and they start telling everybody what to do. I mean, it don't matter.
Right.
It gets, and that frustrates me as a citizen because I would trust more my local mayor, boards, councils, what have you, local officials to handle these things for the best of the citizenry than having a dictate from Madison.
Yeah, right. And it frustrates a lot of municipal leaders. I know there's a lot of municipal leaders that have, have supported, on the political side, supported the majority party, and they were largely the party that took away a lot of these controls, and it really left people perplexed.
Yeah.
Saying,
okay, let's talk. The majority party in the state, the Republican Party, has traditionally had a philosophy of government closest to the people is best.
Right. The government is not good.
And that local government is better. And now they're acting like the people they criticized before and handing down mandates.
Right.
And then they're not funded.
Yeah, right. And the locals are left to look around and say, well, here, I guess we've got to deal with it. Another major investment that is continuing to make progress. Many people saw the end of February when the two city-owned properties came down across.
Yeah, we're asking about that.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten many compliments about the appearance now while it's sort of getting closer to a greenfield site and ready for redevelopment. As I've published in my community update and talked about on our show previously, the Good Time Charlie's property, we've got a state grant in for that of $150,000. We don't know our prognosis of whether we're successful yet, but we hope to know in the coming weeks. We will take ownership after that that announcement is made, whether we're successful or not, as that will help us pay for the demolition costs of that building. And so ultimately, even just yesterday, I've been watching closely the Stevens Point and the Wausau developments that are very, very, very similar to our downtown.
In fact, on their visitors guide, they promote, I think it's 3rd Avenue, or they promote this one development that said it has apartments and condos and restaurants and stuff. It's promoted as hey, come visit this place.
Oh, sure.
It's in their visitor guide.
I believe that.
And it's this. And when I saw the description, I'm going, well, that sounds like what the city is looking at.
Absolutely. There's many similarities. One announcement that the Stevens Point just made earlier this week, and actually I think took action last night at their redevelopment authority, of a local developer who saw the vision and sees the opportunity. And so they reached out and said, hey, tell me more about what I'm hearing in Wisconsin Rapids. And the good news is they want to be included in when the city does publish the development for bids. So the good news is there is interest, and our housing study will be finished in a couple of weeks. And from from that housing study, we'll have some demand quantified to say, here's what the housing demand would look like in the development of this sort. And then we can package all the financing opportunities. There's the local TIF. There's also some state and federal opportunities that will help finance a major redevelopment to really make it something that's going to be a pretty large-scale development in our recent downtown memory anyway.
But I think what we're learning is there are developers out there that are looking for these type of opportunities.
Yeah. Borrowing costs are at historic lows.
That's what a local businessman told me, why this is happening, because I asked him, why is this going on right now?
Yeah, opportunists are seizing the moment and definitely taking advantage of the low interest rates. And we obviously, as a municipality, from a redevelopment standpoint, want to capitalize on that too, because interest rates at some point in the future will likely increase, and so the cost of doing these projects will go up.
And since you control the site, you can control what type of development goes in there.
Exactly.
So it fits the community.
Yeah, we can tell them from things like, hey, these are the wages that we hope that you would pay. Here's the type of contractors, local contractors maybe, that we hope we'd expect that you hire if it's not a local developer. And all those components are under the city's control, which really puts, really maximizes the true potential of that site.
And then having competition from different developers who go, I want to know, Your Honor, when the bidding process begins. That's always good, too.
Exactly. Yeah, it shows that the market, there's opportunity here in the city, and we're pleased to be taking the steps to promote it.
Okay. Anything else with regards to that? I guess you're continuing to pursue the Four Stools and Giebert building?
That's correct, yeah. There's some work underway yet, and still the county annex. We remain in conversation with the county. As the county moves across the river, some of their offices and consolidates in the river block, there's impacts related to parking. So we keep an open dialogue with the county, and happy to work with them on that, because there will be impacts, right, of any of these developments.
Well, wouldn't this be a good time to address what has been a continuing issue, downtown parking?
Right. And we have a surplus of parking today,
right?
But the parking lots we have are in terrible condition, and so a win-win-win could be the county's need for parking, our need to reconstruct, and then make available some of these lots on off-peak usage when other users may not need them, which would be in the evenings and weekends.
Anything else before I let you go?
Nope. That's I think does it for us, Carl, at this point.
Okay. Well, depending on the April 5th, I'll either be visiting with you again or your successor. But it's been fun 2 years, and I guess you will continue. I know Mr. Nash has said he's willing to do it as well, so
absolutely.
I would hope that because it's been a tradition in the city, regardless of who's in the office of mayor.
I enjoy it. Thanks, Carl.
Okay, well, you and everybody at City Hall and city government have a happy Easter.
Thanks, you too.
Okay.
Listeners.
Okay. And that's going to do it for today's edition of the Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 and WFHR.com, and also on RCCAmedia.org. And you can catch a rebroadcast of this on Charter Channel 985 and Solaris Channel 3. And